Something haunted their house. No one could see it, but everyone felt it. Doors slammed. Objects moved on their own. Cold spots appeared, even in the middle of summer. A foul, strange smell filled the rooms. Even their dog was terrified. Priests came. Investigators came. Still, it didn't stop. This is not a story made up for movies. This really happened. What haunted the Smurl family? And why did it stay for years? This is the real story of the Smurl family haunting. If you like true horror, subscribe now and turn on notifications. The year was 1973 when Jack and Janet Smurl moved into a double-block duplex on Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. The house was old, built many decades before. One half belonged to Jack, Janet, and their children, the other half to Jack's parents. At first, life seemed ordinary. The family painted, repaired the house, and settled in. They tried to build a fresh start. The children laughed in the halls, the parents went about their routines, and the house seemed like any other. But soon, strange things began. At first, they were small, almost insignificant. A door creaked when no one was near. Tools disappeared. Hammers, screwdrivers, and other equipment used for home repairs, only to reappear weeks later in odd places. Paint would peel, for no reason. Small scratches appeared on furniture, as if caused by something clawing at it. Faucets turned on by themselves. Lights flickered, without a power surge. The family noticed cold spots in certain rooms. Even in the middle of summer, when the air was hot and still. These minor disturbances grew more noticeable over time. Chairs rocked, though no one sat in them. Drawers opened and closed on their own. The family smelled strange, foul odors that seemed to fill rooms with no source. Sometimes the smell was like rotting garbage, other times like chemicals, and it would vanish as suddenly as it appeared. The children whispered to each other about seeing shadows moving in corners, shapes that seemed to shift when no one looked directly at them. Even the family dog began to act strangely, growling at empty corners, refusing to enter certain rooms, shivering for no reason. The family tried to explain the events logically. Perhaps the house was settling. Perhaps the wind or faulty plumbing caused noises. But nothing could explain the disappearing objects or the repeated, unexplained cold spots. The television once turned on and emitted flames, even though it had been unplugged for hours. A strange scratching appeared along the walls, deep gouges that could not be ignored. Jack and Janet began keeping notes, recording every incident, no matter how small. They tried to remain calm, tried to reassure each other, but the pattern was undeniable. Something in the house was not right. Neighbors began noticing unusual activity as well. Strange noises seemed to escape the walls late at night. Footsteps and bangs echoed through the house. Some said they saw the children looking frightened, staring at empty rooms. Yet, the family could not tell anyone everything, fearing ridicule or disbelief. The events were escalating quietly, but steadily, shaping a nightmare they could not yet fully understand. By the end of the first year, the Smurls realized that these incidents were no longer minor. Doors slammed with force. Objects were thrown or moved in ways that defied explanation. The family felt watched, and at times threatened. What had begun as a few odd occurrences had grown into a daily series of disturbances, affecting the family's sleep, their peace, and their sense of safety. For the Smurls, these were no ghost stories. This was their reality. What started as quirks of an old house turned into a nightmare that would last for years. And they would soon learn that help from the outside would be necessary if they hoped to survive the terror that had claimed their home. The strange events grew worse over time. Doors would slam by themselves. A foul, rotten smell drifted through the rooms, sometimes like garbage, sometimes like decay. Lights flickered, radios turned on, even when unplugged. Drawers opened and closed. Chairs creaked and rocked, though no one touched them. Walls groaned. Footsteps echoed upstairs, even when the house was empty. The family dog began acting strangely. The German Shepherd would bark at empty corners, back away trembling, sometimes refusing to enter certain rooms. The children felt afraid, often waking in the middle of the night, listening for noises that should not exist. Shadows flickered at the edge of vision, shapes that seemed alive, but vanished when looked at directly. Over the years, the small disturbances piled up like a heavy weight. Scratches appeared, on bathroom fittings, on walls, as though something had clawed at them. Water pipes leaked again and again, even after being repaired. A television once burst into flames despite being unplugged. Carpets and furniture developed strange stains, some that could not be explained or cleaned. Faucets ran without being touched. Objects disappeared, only to reappear in completely different rooms. Every repair, every attempt to fix the house, seemed to fail. By 1985, the family believed something inside the house had grown angry. Some nights, the air turned icy cold, freezing even in the middle of summer. Doors slammed violently. Heavy furniture moved. One evening, the Smurls reported that a chair flew across the living room, nearly hitting a child. On other occasions, mattresses shook, slamming the family against the bedposts. Janet claimed that unseen hands pulled at her in the night, trying to drag her from her bed. The children became withdrawn, fearful of going upstairs or even staying alone in a room. The family's fear was constant. Every creak of the floor, every whisper of wind made them tense. They began to avoid certain rooms. They hesitated to touch certain objects, afraid of what might happen. Even ordinary tasks became terrifying. Cooking, cleaning, walking through hallways, all carried a sense of threat. Something had awakened, and it was not bound by logic or explanation. Neighbors noticed odd occurrences as well. Strange noises came from the house, footsteps, bangs, voices in the night. Some neighbors claimed the dog howled without reason. Yet, the family feared speaking too much about it, afraid of ridicule, disbelief, or worse, attention that could make the situation escalate. By late 1985, the Smurls knew they could not handle it alone. The haunting was no longer minor. It had become relentless. Sleep was rare. Anxiety was constant. Every wall, every shadow, every sound became a source of terror. And so, they reached out, seeking answers, hoping someone outside the house could explain or stop what was happening. The house that had once been a home had become a prison, and the Smurls, a family trapped by something unseen, something powerful, something they could not fight alone. By 1986, the Smurl family could no longer live in constant fear. They had documented every incident, every noise, every movement, every strange smell. And the disturbances had not stopped. Doors slammed, lights flickered, objects moved, and the cold spots seemed to grow more intense. The family felt watched, and in many ways, they believed they were being targeted. Desperate, the Smurls reached out for help. Local clergy were called to bless the house. Priests came, sprinkled holy water, and recited prayers. For a time, the house seemed quieter, almost calm. But the relief was temporary. Soon, the noises returned, objects shifted, and the sense of a dark presence intensified. The family began to believe that the house contained more than one entity. The story eventually attracted national attention. Investigators and paranormal researchers took interest. Among them were Ed and Lorraine Warren, well-known paranormal investigators. According to their public statements, the Smurl home exhibited signs of extreme activity. Temperatures dropped suddenly in rooms, even in summer. Unexplained sounds, knocks, thumps, and banging were reported. Shadowy figures appeared at the edges of vision. The Warrens concluded that multiple entities were present, some with malevolent intent. During their investigations, the Warrens reported that the Smurls experienced physical manifestations. Objects moved, often violently. Beds shook, walls were scratched. The family claimed they were sometimes pushed, or felt hands gripping them in the night. The Warrens conducted blessings, prayers, and attempted exorcisms. The family reported moments of calm, followed by periods of even greater intensity. Despite the involvement of clergy and investigators, the haunting continued. Friends and neighbors sometimes witnessed unusual phenomena, lights flickering, doors moving, strange noises echoing through the house. Media coverage brought the story to a wider audience, adding pressure and scrutiny. Some journalists remained skeptical. Others reported the family's experiences with cautious belief. The Smurls' life inside the house had become a cycle of fear, fleeting calm, and escalating terror. Sleep was broken, anxiety was constant, and the presence in the house seemed to grow stronger with each passing year. The family realized they were not just dealing with ordinary disturbances, they were living with something beyond explanation, something unseen, relentless, and determined to remain. By the late 1980s, the Smurl haunting had become a story known far beyond West Pittston, Pennsylvania. Journalists, television crews, and paranormal enthusiasts all wanted to see the house, to witness the events for themselves. Yet, not everyone believed the family's claims. Skeptics began to speak out. Some argued that the disturbances could be explained by natural causes, structural issues in the old duplex, faulty wiring, plumbing problems, or drafts in the house. Others suggested psychological factors, stress, fear, or even mass hysteria among family members. Paul Kurtz, a well-known investigator and skeptic, questioned the validity of the evidence. He noted inconsistencies in the family's reports and pointed out that much of the proof was anecdotal. Photos, recordings, and witness testimonies were difficult to verify. To critics, the Smurl case was a combination of misperception, environmental factors, and media amplification. Despite skepticism, the Smurls maintained their experiences were real. They described being physically harmed, beds shaking violently, walls scratched, objects thrown without explanation, and doors slamming on their own. The children were visibly affected, terrified to sleep or move around the house at night. The family insisted that multiple outside investigators, including the Warrens, had witnessed some of the disturbances. The public debate grew heated. Paranormal believers accepted the Smurl accounts as some of the most compelling evidence of a haunting in modern American history. They argued that the sheer number of witnesses, the persistence of the events, and the physical manifestations could not be explained by natural or psychological causes alone. Meanwhile, skeptics labeled the case as sensationalized, fueled by media coverage and amplified by the Warrens' involvement. This divide created tension not only in the public sphere, but within the neighborhood. Some neighbors supported the Smurls, claiming they heard noises or saw odd shadows. Others avoided the house entirely, unsure what to believe. The media continued to cover the story. Interviews were conducted, and the family's experiences were broadcast nationwide. Yet, despite all the scrutiny, the debates, and the investigations, no definitive evidence ever emerged. No cameras captured the entities. No scientific test confirmed their presence. What remained were testimonies, notes, and memories of a family that had lived through years of unexplained terror. The Smurl case became a symbol of the divide between belief and skepticism, between the desire to explain and the reality that some events refuse simple answers. By the early 1990s, the Smurl family had reached a breaking point. Years of fear, sleepless nights, and constant terror had taken their toll. They decided they could no longer remain in the house. Moving out was not easy. Every possession, every memory, carried a trace of the haunting they had endured. Yet, leaving was necessary for their sanity and for the safety of their children. After the family moved, reports suggested that new tenants did not experience the same phenomena. Some claimed the house seemed ordinary, quiet, almost peaceful. Others reported minor oddities, but nothing compared to what the Smurls had endured. This raised questions for investigators, believers, and skeptics alike. Had the entities truly left with the family? Or had the story simply been amplified by fear and attention? The case remained in the public eye. Books were written about the Smurls, including one co-authored with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Television specials and interviews kept the haunting alive in popular culture. To believers, the story was a striking example of a real, prolonged haunting. To skeptics, it remained a collection of anecdotal reports, dramatic claims, and unverified evidence. For the Smurls themselves, the experience left lasting effects. Even after leaving the house, the memory of fear persisted. Sleep disorders, anxiety, and lingering distrust of certain spaces were reported. Yet, they shared their story, hoping others would understand, hoping to warn those who might encounter unexplained phenomena. Today, the Smurl haunting remains one of the most debated paranormal cases in the United States. It sits at the intersection of belief and skepticism, a story that refuses easy explanation. The family's experiences, the investigators' claims, the skeptics' doubts, all create a layered narrative. And perhaps that is why the story endures. Because some events cannot be neatly explained, some mysteries remain unsolved, and some houses leave a mark on those who live inside them forever. If you found this story intriguing, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life horror stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chilling tale. As we reflect on the Smurl haunting, we are reminded that real life can sometimes be stranger and far more terrifying than fiction. And while the house on Chase Street may no longer hold the family captive, the story lives on, haunting our minds, challenging what we believe, and leaving us to wonder what truly happened behind its walls.